of 1992, in response to the growing environmental crisis, the United Nations hosted an Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. It was the largest summit in human history. Leaders of all major industrial nations of the world convened. Out of the 5,000 indigenous nations, whose cultures live in harmony with the earth, the United Nations invited one indigenous leader to address the global summit, allotting him 5 minutes to speak.
He is the representative committee intertribal. He has the floor.
E nós, os índios,
we Indians of the world,
nós não tínhamos onde falar.
We did not have a podium. We did not have a forum. We had no place to have our voices heard. So we tried to make our own forum according to our own technology, according to our own wisdom and our own science, according to our own architecture. And we set up an Indian village right here in Rio de Janeiro.
Nearly 1,000 tribal leaders from every part of the globe gathered in Brazil for the first World Conference of Indigenous Peoples. This unprecedented Indigenous Earth Summit was held 1 week prior to the United Nations Summit. This is the story of indigenous peoples, of their remarkable gathering, and of their message regarding life on Earth.
Meu nome é Eduardo, sou da tribo Kaiowá. Meu nome indígena é Avanhevangá, que quer dizer mensageiros.
We come to reaffirm the practices that we have adopted since time immemorial to preserve Mother Nature and to look after ourselves has been the right way, and that we want to share that knowledge and understanding, educating the non-Indigenous peoples throughout the world about what our perspectives are.
We, the indigenous peoples, walk to the future in the footprints of our ancestors. From the smallest to the largest living being, from the four directions, from the air, the land, and the mountain, the Creator has placed us, the indigenous peoples, upon our mother, the earth.
Esse templo da sabedoria
this temple of centuries-old wisdom, this life code that no scientist has ever managed to unveil, rests with the Indians. And it is exactly that you were looking for here at this conference.
Não é necessário mais vocês fazerem novas pesquisas.
You don't have to look any further or research any further or spend millions of dollars on new research. We, the Indians, would like to offer you our science, our wisdom for your civilization.
E mais uma vez, a gente tem
And
que
once
perguntar
again,
para vocês,
we have to ask you,
será que vocês estão preparados
are
para
you
isso?
prepared for that?
Será que o mundo moderno
Is the contemporary world
está preparado para
prepared
escutar o que nós
to
queremos
listen
dizer
to what
depois de
we
500
want to
anos
convey after 500 years of silence?
It is suggested that when Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas, he named the native peoples Indios, not because he imagined them to be inhabitants of India, but because he recognized that the people lived in blessed harmony with their surroundings. Una gente in Dios, a people in God. Indian existence is not separable from the natural world. Man is an aspect of nature. Respect for nature is reverence for the Creator, and it is also self-respecting, since man and nature are not different.
You can't talk about the forest without the people. So those who only want to preserve the tree or special species, we have to make clear to them, you should not forget us. Because we are also connected to the environment and to the land, as well as to the territory, as well as to the nature. So you can't separate us from that.
The nature, your nature, I honor you and your creator. The male reindeer grunts and make low in autumn time. In springtime, very nice small calves are born. It is then you think, maybe we live here some more years. Thank you.
Bukod baro siyempre kaganaman tambal ya ang gamitin nawon bagamat mara kay natabano pero pambihira ya paghakit ko nawon.
Mount Pinatubo is a sacred mountain to us. Our ancestors told us that on the top of Mount Pinatubo is a huge rock, and this rock is believed to be the abode of our God, whom we called Apo na Malyari, which means God the Creator. When we pray, we face this mountain, and when we die, we believe that our souls go back to this mountain. Mount Pinatubo is also our mother, because we suck from her breast the water that we drink, and we get varied medicines. Since we live very far from the town and from the cities and we cannot afford hospitals and doctors, we cure our illnesses with the varied medicines that we get from this mountain.
E mais assim, congruente com a natureza. Nós índios, a natureza e vocês também com a natureza, nós somos iguais. Nós dependemos desse planeta, nós nunca vamos sair daqui como os americanos para morar no espaço. Nós somos daqui e aqui ficaremos, e por isso o meio ambiente para o planeta é muito importante. A maioria ficará aqui. Chega de ilusão com outras coisas que não têm sentido para a vida indígena.
Because indigenous cultures are inherently interwoven with nature, native peoples find themselves on the front lines of environmental destruction. When forests are destroyed, the cultures who have lived in those forests for thousands of years are also destroyed.
So if they really want to understand about the mother, then they have to learn how to respect her properly. And there are ways of doing that. And Indigenous people have the knowledge of that. And unless they want to sort of wait until they're about 40 or 50 or the instance before they die to go through that, they want to start learning that Indigenous people and the way that they lived with the mother, right, was in contrast with the way that the cycle of life went. And if you try to muck that up, and you try to muck the balance of that up, then you're going to walk through a death path all the way until you die. And you'll be totally dead all the way through.
Due to modern technology, which is sometimes people feel we human beings is there some kind of owner of this planet. We can do anything which we want. We can control the whole planet. I think this is a wrong conception. After all, we are a part of the nature. So if you see nature, you see balance, you see dramatically you see change, I think entire humanity will suffer.
Since the 15th century, one of the dominant themes of history has been the militant expansion of European peoples and cultures into other continents. Western Europe, before the 15th century, had suffered epidemic disease, prolonged wars, the decay of universities, withering trade, and the crumbling of the Holy Roman Empire. The continent was characterized by pessimism, cynicism, and despair. It was the resources of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, precious metals, vital foodstuffs, land, and people that provided a basis for a commercial revival and launched an epoch of European expansionism and development.
There's a common history shared by all Indigenous groups here at this karaoke meeting, in that we all have been occupied forcibly by respective colonial forces. We have never given up our birthright, our heritage, and we have also been subjected to the same progressive destruction of our environment and the death of our people. The major reason is that Aboriginal people in Australia have been forcibly occupied by the British. We have never ceded sovereignty to our land, and we have been occupied under the legal fiction, which does not exist anymore in international law, of terra nullius, which means empty land, and that was the basis of the forcible occupation of Aboriginal people.
Isto quer dizer, nós não temos nada o que agradecer aos espanhóis e aos portugueses que devastaram as nossas terras, as nossas populações. Nós não temos que nada agradecer a Portugal e a Espanha, e muito menos ao Estado e às igrejas que transformaram a nós, seus subalternos. Então, daqui para frente, não vou obedecer o Papa, não vou obedecer o Estado. Sim, posso discutir de igual para igual, eu acredito nisso.
The government, we have in our land the Treaty of Waitangi, which was, we shared what we had with the colonisers who came over in 1840. We didn't say we'd give it to you. We will share what we've got, because it wasn't ours to give, but we could share. The government became to ownership and ignored the treaty and then set down the laws of the land and all those things. Some of those laws are inconsistent with the laws of what we as people think. So we now have a clash.
Colonial occupation is not a thing of the past. Cultures around the world are being oppressed. It is estimated that even today, 2 tribes per year become extinct.
So what happened 500 years ago, like in the Americas, or what happened 200 years ago, like in Australia, same thing is happening in my country. And that's why it's very important to come here, to share, and to come up with common program to tackle our common future. Our struggle should be based on a common understanding and a mutual respect with between the different indigenous peoples.
Como todos os índios do mundo inteiro, enfrentamos muitas dificuldades, muitos problemas. Nos anos 50 foi o primeiro contato que os nossos pais fizeram com a civilização, com o homem branco. E quando eles fizeram, o nosso povo quase foi extinto devido à introdução de doenças, invasões de terras e territórios que nós possuíamos naquele tempo.
Nós, Kaiowá, nós somos donos da terra. Como que pode ser os brancos entrar lá dentro, fazer o que quer? Para poder ir para frente. A nossa reserva já acabou o mato, a nossa reserva já acabou tudo, a nossa reserva está que nem um mingau, mas está pareio. Aonde que nós vamos viver desse jeito? Muita gente estão se enforcando, outros tomam veneno, outros até por causa cansado da vida, porque eles veem aquela situação, eles vão longe, às vezes eles vão, acontece longe, começa, outros matam eles. O índio, eles próprios lá na nossa reserva, muitos brancos já aconteceu isso, matar o índio, jogar dentro do rio. Matam o índio entre de 3 mil Kaiowá. Não tem mais nem 200 Kaiowá.
Due to the introduction of Western diseases and to violence, 20% of the Brazilian Yanomami tribe has died in the last decade.
Mesmo lugar, nós estamos 10 cada um. Maluca. Nós estamos pouca. Por isso que fica muita tristeza. Meus povos morreram tudo.
We continue to maintain our rights as peoples despite the centuries of deprivation, assimilation, and genocide. We maintain our inalienable rights to our lands and our territories, to all our resources above and below, and to our waters. We assert our ongoing responsibility to pass these on to the future generations. We cannot be removed from our lands. We, the indigenous peoples, are connected by the circle of life to our lands and environments.
Maybe someday we will have a seat in this hall when the minds of white men open out to understand that we are no threat to your civilization. Quite the opposite. We've always been threatened. Many of our Indian nations have been extinguished. For this reason, I think it's very important to be here addressing you, not as a Brazilian Indian, but as a native, an Indian, a citizen of the forest, of the waters, and of Mother Nature.
Silencing indigenous peoples around the world is a common tool of oppression.
As you may know, Indonesia is a military regime. It's ruled by a military regime, and that means that in my country there is no, the people have no right to speak. Every year on the 25th of April, our proclamation day, Independence Day, our people hoisting the Malaccan flag, and only for hoisting the flag, last year thousands of my people were arrested and they were tortured.
It appears that the way to control Indigenous peoples within Australia is to lock them up in the prison systems and to throw the key away. Aboriginal people are one of the most imprisoned peoples in the world.
So this is the flag for all the West Papuans. If you happen to be in the country and you happen to have such a flag, that's the end of your life, because it's forbidden. But still, people want us to reproduce and send them the flags, because that's the basic idea for all West Papuans. They all die for this flag, symbolizing their struggle for survival and the struggle for their own place in this earth.
Beyond imprisonment, execution, and the lack of free expression, Indigenous peoples are currently being diluted in a numbers game called transmigration.
The Indonesian government, they transmigrate thousands and thousands of people from abroad to my island, so my people will become in the near future a minority. And it also means that the culture of my people will be destroyed by the transmigrants, and also a very hot issue in my country is the birth control programs. Our Indigenous women is allowed to have only 2 children, and the Indigenous, and I mean the transmigrants women, they are allowed to have unrestricted children.
For instance, we have this immigration program. In Indonesia, it's called the Transmigration Program. And the Transmigration Program, sponsored by the World Bank, and according to the World Bank, will make us West Papuans be a minority by the year 2000.
Que na realidade o governo deveria garantir a demarcação das terras, fazer com que o índio permaneça lá, que não fosse obrigado a se integrar. O índio sim deve vir para a cidade. O índio pode colocar roupa, mas ele não precisa ser empurrado, não precisa sair da terra dele. Ao contrário, hoje, o governo está empurrando, está integrando, está lutando para que o índio se integre. E isso é muito mal para o índio. Poderão vir centenas, milhares de índios começar a pedir na rua, como no Rio de Janeiro. Crianças famintas estão roubando, estão sendo assassinados e o governo está com os olhos tampados. Então, isso é perigoso. Perigoso para a sociedade, perigoso para o índio.
Another twist in the numbers game is to label Indigenous peoples as populations rather than peoples, which are distinct and autonomous nations with their own governments, laws, and rights.
And I'm very afraid of words that are used in populations, statistics. Whereas if you talk about people, you're talking about the soul of a human being. And it's the soul of a human being for the future that you're really looking at. You're not talking about a head count of a number in a computer. And that's what it adds up to. And I know, like us, many Indigenous people around the world are far sick and tired of being a population of 2%, a population of 10%, or 0.5% of your country's population, or of a country's population. We always get talked about, you can't have that because your population is officially only, 15%, 12.5%, 15%. We said, but we're not a figure. We are a people. And it's time that you recognise the needs of the people, not what you've got on the computer that says you can only have. If there is only one Māori left in our country, then that Māori is deserving of 100% of its needs, whether it's in education, health, welfare or employment. And that is the trick of the political issue. And that allows multinational, transnationals to come in and say, oh, well, there's only 1% or 0.5%. We don't need to consider them when we want to open up a mine. It only affects 1% of that population.
I'm here to witness that indeed we all together have facing the same problems, and that we need to stick together to analyze how we should go on to demand finally our right to determine our own way of living, our own way of thinking, our cultural beliefs, and so on and so on and so on in terms of the right to self-determination.
That we be consistent in using the term peoples with an S. Because as we know, and as I have been told, when we use the term peoples with an S, then that recognizes our right to self-determination.
Yamewero, it means I don't want it, I don't want it. Yamewero, yabewomen kakero, I don't want anybody else to talk for me. Imboyanke yambaye, whether I have something to eat or nothing to eat, Yamari señores romangundaya, I want to stand on my own feet. So that's a song from my tribe, expressing our readiness to fight on till the end, but we want to remain ourselves, we want to be independent, and we don't want to be colonized by any foreign country.
We would like you who are listening to us, we would like to ask you to ponder about what it means to be a person. What does it mean to be an individual? Because we Indians, we have always been neglected as second-rate citizens in the relations between peoples. Right here at this conference, we cannot speak as Indian peoples. We can just speak as Indian populations. That is our status. But why? Why is that so? Why do you do this to us? I'm using the same clothes that you are. I might be wearing a tie even. I can learn English. I can learn French. We have our own policies. We have our own style of government. It's different from your own, of course, but nevertheless, this is no reason for us to have been considered as wild people, as the Brazilian press has said this week. We're not wild because we do not kill our children. As happens in the large urban centers, we do not have slums as the big cities do. We do not have psychiatric hospitals in our villages. So, we wonder, what does living mean?
Baru kay simpre ang pangunan ka kuno naon bidang halanom, bihalakatan simpre ti mga hili ba ayok biganon tanaman lalo yang kay kanaon baru kay ang panguanin malaya kay in ay ni na baon dire baut mihata mihakunon ikunaon ka ganaon ba ito ang kayal lakunin sarili nawon.
Mount Pinatubo is also our life. Because land is life. We survive, we live by the products of the mountain. So we are free in this mountain. There are no boundaries. We go up and down the mountain. We gather food. We go fishing, hunting, and we take care of this mountain because this is our life.
In our area, our seafood is what maintains our mana. In another area, it may be the ferns and the roots. In another area, it may be the birds. The South Island, it is the mutton birds. So we all have a particular food, which, you know, it might be the tuna, the eels that run in a stream, or the trout. So within the whole country, we all have a specific thing which makes us important to each other.
This is what I have. I have love for my people. I have love for my culture. I have love for my human rights. I have love for everything that a man has to possess.
And I must say that I only have one professor in my work, and those are my mother and my father.
It's in our blood. Right now you ask me to dance for you, I dance straight away. You ask me to sing for you, I sing straight away. I don't have to correct my... No. Straight away it comes, right? You know, I'm funny, you know.
The thing is that you have all of those things, right, that you're able to be. But a lot of the times we only come from one little section of it, you know. And it takes you a whole lifetime then to understand the one little section of it. And when you get to know the instance of that, then you've got millions of other instances that you are all at the same time too. All right? So you never ever get to really know, or be, not so much know, but get to be the completeness of what it is unless you complete one thing in your life, you know, and that's the respect of yourself as far as your mother's concerned.
Porque nós somos conhecedores da natureza.
We know nature. We practice sustainable development. For us, this has been a daily routine in our lives. It's not an alternative approach, as it is known.
We as Indigenous people and as Māori people, we know the sciences, we can teach the sciences because we didn't have things of how you did things, mechanical things. It's done by the stars, the moon. We know our fishing time, when to close off. We know when the berries are ready and these sort of things, and what plants to use.
El norte o los líderes, estos líderes que pueden tener poder económico, pero no tienen la capacidad dentro de su poder económico de mantener ese equilibrio que el planeta necesita. Los pueblos indígenas tenemos ese poder de mantener ese equilibrio que el planeta necesita para continuar avanzando. Y esa es nuestra tecnología que hallamos más desarrollada que la tecnología que proviene del dinero.
Eu tava na Baixa do Boi, eu vi Isabelê cantar, respondeu a Jurici.
Essa terra é muito importante para nós netos, é muito importante para nós comidas, alimentação, mel, comida, das montanhas, chuva, vento, lua, estrela, sol, para a gente continuar morar nessa terra.
The wind is the voice of the Creator. It says, have no fear of the universe. But a different worldview has prevailed. When the colonialists arrived in America, they saw a hideous and desolate wilderness. Filled with horror, they strove to tame and conquer this wilderness. Two worldviews, one of seeing yourself as belonging to nature versus one of seeing yourself as separate from nature, have led to vastly different ways of living in the world.
Pero ayon haturi daw ning katutubo talaga pinumuto ka bulkan bana ta nin inggalang nin daw-dayuan ni laging la menina geothermal ani tali hati bakil masagrado para ni mangwalan ni maamot gamitan ng electricity kaya ni apo na mayari na mahangta ginalawi ya bakil ya pangalagaan nawon.
There are theories why the volcano erupted. One theory, according to the volcanologist, is the scientific theory, which says that the volcano erupted because the magma underneath had been dormant for the past 600 years, and now it is being heated up, and it is going up to the crater, so it explodes. That's a scientific theory, and we believe in that. But we have our own spiritual theory, which the scientists do not believe. Our theory is that Mount Pinatubo is given to us by our God. This is for us to take care of Mother Earth. But man destroy it by logging, mining, and drilling of huge geothermal plant. Energy is being dug up into these mountains, but they could not find the energy they want for electricity, so they just pour thousands of bags of cement to stop it, or pour some chemicals in it. And yet the mountain was reacting to that. So when the volcano erupted, our conclusion is that Mother Earth is retaliating because Mother Earth is being destroyed. Now, the scientists do not believe this, but we want to tell the world to stop geothermal, to stop destroying the mountain, because the mountain is already angry.
There are about 6 million tribesmen called the Ijo who are in that delta area. The area has oil and gas. Which industrialists from other parts of the world come there and they exploit. When they exploit it, they pollute the area. That pollution impoverishes the place. See? The human beings living there will be destroyed in another century. That is what we want to stop.
Both militarization and transmigration will control fully enough for multinational corporations to enter into our country and exploit our natural resources. For an example, the Amungme people in the area where the Freeport Mining Corporation is working, those people has lost their lands, has been pushed away from the land.
And once again, within Australia, we have been subjected to a lot of nuclear bomb testings. In fact, the bomb testings throughout the 1950s have been 16 times more than the bombs that have been dropped at Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Não é de admirar que homem branco destruiu tudo por completo, inclusive a ele próprio. Aonde está o planeta que já foi azul? É verdejante. Hoje se vê a Terra grande devastado deserto. Não sobrou quase nada. Muitas raças foram destruídas através de uma arma tão terrível que é a ganância.
No ano 2000, só vai existir a imagem do índio no livro, que ele pessoalmente não vai existir. Então tem muito cuidado. Nós pedimos à sociedade que eles olhem pela gente. Não é porque nós somos uma cultura diferente que não podemos ser olhados. Nós somos cidadãos, nós somos humanos, nós somos vida. Nós fazemos parte da natureza. Nós lutamos pela natureza, nós estamos vendo o Rio de Janeiro desmoronando. O que está acontecendo? Não tem arvoredo lá, não tem a raiz aí, ó. Não tem para garantir o chão. Então quando chove a água penetra, desmorona. Começa acontecendo tudo isso. A mudança do sistema. Tudo isso porque estão cortando toda a nossa natureza. Nos arvoredos, a nossa sombra. É por isso. Então, vocês que estão na cidade, que são civilizados, que têm uma inteligência maior do que a gente, que a nossa, nós estamos começando a avançar agora. Quer dizer, a nossa inteligência é muito mais além do que você possa imaginar. Mas nós somos considerados burros. Não somos, não. Somos tão inteligentes que nós defendemos a natureza. 500 anos estamos defendendo a natureza.
In the end, the corporations are only supplying what we individuals demand.
Well, for one thing, in order for the people to help, it has to start with the individual. And the individual's lifestyles have to change in order to help out the environment. And that's one area most people do not want to do. They are so used to their lifestyles that they don't give it a thought about how it is harming the environment. So to start off with, we have to start with your own personal self and start changing your own lifestyle. And from there, when everybody starts doing that, then it will make a big impact on what's happening.
But Europeans have to meet their own problems. They have to start taking down the blind of fear and opening up their eyes and saying, right, we can't readdress what happened 150 plus years ago. Maybe we need to have a look at where we are today, what we can do to make sure that our children are not going to be in the same situation we've had in the last 100 years.
Então eu estou tentando colocar de coração de vocês, eu estou falando no fundo de vocês, aqui tem os brancos que estão ouvindo, essa língua não é minha, mas eu estou tentando colocar no pensamento dele, para eles aprender com nós, para encontrar nossa mensagem, para encontrar nosso caminho, para encontrar nossa inteligência, para encontrar a preservação da natureza, ecologia, para eles também aprender, respeitar nessa terra para o povo indígena, para o povo indígena deixar em paz.
Não se pode gastar milhões e milhões de
You cannot
dólares
just squander millions and millions of dollars on a conference such as this if you don't want to listen to what the earth has to tell you. Nature
está sendo destruída
is being destroyed every minute. Each jet that crosses the Atlantic is destroying Mother Nature. Each atomic, nuclear explosion in the Pacific, in any ocean, is destroying nature. Every time money is allocated to research under the aegis of peace for new nuclear weapons, we are destroying nature again. We're destroying our own lives. It's not just the lives of the Indians that are being destroyed. And this is why we wonder, we have 7 minutes to speak after 500 years of silence. But will we be heard invite everyone. Can we get into your minds and into your hearts? Can we sensitize you as people, as individuals? We did not come here to Rio to just pretend, play at being Indians. We didn't come here to please the leaders. We came here to fight for life.
If we want to protect our environment or if we want to protect our culture, then we will be considered by the government as subversive. So I'm actually a subversive element because I want to protect my people and I want to promote my people's cultures in order to determine their own future.
Nós temos direito e nós vamos lutar. O índio nasceu, o índio cresceu dentro daquela área, ele vai derramar sangue, ele vai lutar, mas ele quer a terra dele de volta.
And within the last 10 or 12 years, young people have stood up and said, hey, you old people, you've done nothing. We're not going to put up with it anymore. We're going to do something. People think they're militant, but I think it is a recognition that time was here to do something, to challenge. And I suppose it got a few of us off our seats and made us sort of realise we had some responsibility to stand up and be counted as well.
I went into a coma for about 7 days and my blood pressure was 190 over 120. It was then that I sort of decided that I'd stop drinking and sort of channel my energy then into drug and alcohol programs. The idea of starting this organisation of Dunuj, which is our ceremony name for night owl for me, and it's my skin, was to help find ways of being able to help the children and adults understand that our culture wasn't dead, it was still alive. It was the thing that healed me, helped me get through a lot of my problems. 10 years later, I'm sort of complete in the sense of knowing that I do have that healed state. I know where it's coming from. I've helped other Aboriginal people, Lebanese, English, whatever, through the same sorts of programs because they're all based from the mother anyhow. So it was good, because inside, once you sort of really look, you find out that there's no such thing as colours and there's no such thing as race or like when you really go inside, it doesn't, those sorts of things don't exist anymore. All that exists is the fact that you're inside the mother and you're alive, and whether it's day or night, it's exactly the same thing.
Let us not forget that we have the responsibility for the future, not only for our children's children, but for the future of the world, for the next, whether the world is going to stay for 1,000 years, 5,000 years, 40,000 years, or 1,000,000 years. What we do here today, we must do it in harmony with nature, in harmony with the spiritual or wairua of each person. And we should not question the wairua of each one of us. To us, that wairua is the thing that moves us from deep inside. And that is what is left behind when we pass on to the next world. That wairua is carried on endlessly to time immemorial.
When we drafted the Carioca Declaration, we were hoping to tell you that our entire future is seen and will develop on the footsteps of our forefathers.
Isso é nossa cultura.
This is our culture.
Isso é nossa força.
This is our strength.
A força espiritual.
The spiritual
Que a
strength
humanidade está perdendo.
that mankind is losing. The spiritual
Se
strength
transformou em força religiosa.
that has become religious strength and which becomes political
Não
strength.
brinque com o espírito.
Don't play with the
Seu
spirit.
espírito é sagrado.
Your spirit
Seu
is
espírito é a
holy.
sua
Your
força.
spirit is sacred.
Não a
It is
força
your
dos
strength, not anybody else's strength.
Toddi mai ia mangde toddi. Wai koburu. Sorry dai se obbi yudua sorry dai no nakagone obbi yahugon. Yudua hu mambrain on tabla de yahugon. Yakonier ko abi Shablib Ibanahia Kuha Yalo Kamian Yatnomaimi Ibayomaki Yayu Yamai Kubladium Yalo Yahoo No Maimi Oh, nada.
Este círculo ha sellado, yo creo, la unidad de todas nuestras fuerzas, las fuerzas de miles de años que se han juntado para hacer de ahora en más una sola fuerza. Todos nuestros pueblos tienen sus historias separadas. Desde hace siglos vienen por caminos separados. Han encontrado aquí en Río el camino grande para avançar.
E o meu desejo, assim, desse encontro, que está sendo uma coisa muito linda, é que possa sair daqui um fortalecimento muito grande entre os povos indígenas, que os seus direitos possam ser respeitados, que possam ser aceitos, que possam ser ouvidos, porque são sociedades que têm muito a ensinar, que têm muito a dividir e que estão dispostos a dar de si para a humanidade. Eu agradeço muito de coração poder falar sobre isso e desejo a todos muito amor, muita paz e harmonia para a nossa terra, para o nosso planeta.
In the one-week gathering, tribal leaders of the globe wrote and unanimously signed a 109-point Earth Charter detailing human rights and international law, land and territory, biodiversity and conservation, development strategies, culture, science, and intellectual property.
And then when people suffer from cancer, when they poison from drinking foul water, when they have no place to live, when people are going to be moving, looking for food, then these irresponsible nations will have to be held accountable for this time. Perhaps they have the opportunity yet because the meeting hasn't been finished. So we'll see, and perhaps the statement of the indigenous people will give them some courage, at least some conviction.
And the declaration that we drafted and that we'd like to share with mankind says that we, the Indian people, are marching towards the future along the footsteps of our forefathers, from the greatest to the least important individual, from the four directions, the air, the wind, the earth, and the mountains. The Creator placed us, Indian people, on our land, which is our Mother Earth. Do you believe this? Could you think about this?
Quando vocês assinarem aqui os acordos,
When you sign the conventions here, we might not be here
Mas vocês vão
in this
estar.
hall, but you will be.
Quando vocês forem assinar
When
os
you
convênios
sign the
sobre o futuro do
conventions
planeta,
dealing with
nós
the
que nos
future of
consideramos
this
os
planet,
maiores
we
conhecedores da natureza,
who believe
não vamos estar
are
assentados
most
aqui no meio de
familiar
vocês.
with nature will not be sitting
Mas
here
vocês vão
among
estar.
you, but you will be here.
E vocês têm que ser
And
nossos aliados.
you must become our allies.
Vocês têm que ser o aliado do futuro.
You have to be partners with
Por
the
isso,
future.
que a gente sempre diz.
This is why we always say,
É assim, a Carta da Terra.
this is the Earth's
Simples.
charter. Very simple,
Ela é tão óbvia
straightforward.
como
It
a
is
vida
so
de vocês,
as obvious as your lives,
como a nossa vida.
as our lives are.
Ela é simples
It
como as
is
crianças,
straightforward and simple as children are,
e como as cores.
and as the
do
colors
arco-íris.
of the rainbow are.
Acredite nisso,
Please believe this.
vocês todos dos governos.
All of you,
Não tenha medo de
government authorities and leaders,
Porque
do
o
not
futuro
fear us,
do
because
índio
the future of the
nós. É o
Indians
futuro de vocês também.
is your
É o
future too,
futuro
and it is
do planeta.
also the future of our planet.
obrigado.
Thank you very much.
E hara I te mea no naene te aroha no nā tupuna toku iho Kia ora.